We're back with Afternoon Express right here on SABC3. Time for us to talk finances. Of course, the much anticipated and awaited budget speech took place today. And we're going to find out what impact that has on us as South Africans. As every year around this time, the topic of the national budget speech is on everyone's mind as we try to determine what it means for us as individuals. So to share some light on all of this, we've got Nedbank personal finance expert Mo Nasirio in studio. Mo, so good to have you on the show today.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So the budget speech has taken place. In terms of the country and where it's going, I'm always concerned about the individual, myself.
Yeah.
What does it mean for me? But let's start with the budget deficit.
Sure.
What exactly does it mean and how does it affect us as South Africans?
Sure. So, I mean, the country's budget is not unlike the household budget. So consider a family of 4 parents and 2 children. Mom and dad goes out to earn an income, and in turn the family spends that income in stuff like food, groceries, school fees, and the like. Now, if we spend less than what we earn, then we end up with a budget surplus.
Yes.
If we spend more than what we earn, we end up with a budget deficit. Yeah, and essentially, there's two ways to overcome the budget deficit, and one is to generate more income, and the other is obviously to cut expenses. Yeah. And now we can generate more income by mom and dad going in and working more hours, or taking on more work, or sending an additional household member to the workforce. To cut those expenses, you would typically reduce your expenditure on luxury items, and of course there's the option of borrowing. Now, in the greater South African context, it's forecast that South Africa will generate revenue of about 1.5 trillion rand over 2019, but spend approximately 1.7 trillion rand.
Wow.
Right, leaving us with a budget deficit of about 200 million rand. Now, to put that into context, of course, I mean, there's a cost to borrowing to fund that budget deficit, and that's typically interest. And to put that into context, the interest bill is approximately what the entire budget allocated to healthcare is. Now, if there's anything to learn out of that specific event, is that you can't, as a household, borrow to increase or to improve your lifestyle.
So there's going to be no tax relief for us as South Africans. What exactly does that mean in terms of how is that going to impact our lives?
Sure. So, I mean, if there's no tax relief, there's a phenomenon called budget creep. Now, that essentially means that if you, we all tax at a specific bracket. If you are towards the top end of the bracket, and let's just say the employer was generous and you received an income this year, there's a risk that income will push you into the next tax bracket, which means that you'll pay additional tax. And at the end of the month, when you've received your income, essentially you might end up either in the same situation or same after-tax income or slightly lower. Now, the problem with that is that there is inflation, which is very erosive to the buying power of your money, and you'll find that you've got less to spend.
Wow. Let me tell you, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about all of this. So it's going to come down to us being really responsible as South Africans, as individuals with our own finances. If I look at the next 10 years, for instance, how do I future-proof my finances?
So, I mean, at the beginning of the year, this year started quite interesting. I mean, there was a hashtag trending that was, what is it, 10-year challenge?
I saw that,
So where we posted photos of ourselves in the last 10 years and what we look now. And it was typically about your physical attribute. But you can apply that to your personal finances.
Really?
So, I mean, if you take it to a practical example, the price of bread, white bread, 10 years ago was approximately 6.20 rand. At some points, it's probably about 16 rand right now. So if you look at the next 10 years, what we challenge you to do is to create a 10-year challenge for yourself. And that might be to achieve financial freedom, or in a more practical sense, let's assume that you want to pay up your bond. So if you take an example of a R1 million bond, and you went to a finance house to finance that bond, for over a 20-year period, that's going to cost you, call it 9,800 rand more or less as a monthly repayment at 10.25% interest. Now, if you emotionally connect to that and find reasons to find an additional 4,500 rand and increase your repayment, you can pay off your bond in 10 years. And that's a reduction of about 700,000 rand that you would have originally paid 2.5 million rand towards that R1 million bond. And reduce that to, call it 1.7 million rand.
So can we do that? Can we do the 10-year challenge with our finances? Mo, that was actually quite brilliant.
Yeah.
I think that's a challenge that we can all take up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think what's important is that we are in a very difficult economic environment, and it's expected to remain for the medium term.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the two things that you can do is either try to generate more income, and if not, is to reduce your debt as aggressively as possible. And as Nedbank, we implore you to see money differently.
Wonderful. Well, we certainly have. Thank you so much for being with us and
Thank
for
you
shedding
for
some
having
light
us.
on the budget speech and how it affects all of us as South Africans. So our personal finance security is a topic that is of great importance to everyone out there, and I'm sure that your input has been valuable, as Mo has said, to our viewers. So be sure to take a close look at your finances and plan accordingly to ensure that you have security in the future. Try that 10-year challenge when it comes to your finances.